Welcome, everybody. This is the Redox 5, formerly known as CF5. This is October 8, or August 18th,
August 8th.
2023. We're getting ahead of ourselves. And we are here. You are there. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So we're going to kick this off and get it going. We're joined tonight with Jim and Glenn, who are co-hosting tonight from San Antonio, Texas. As always, Jim helps us with the money and the business side, and Ann is our consummate nutrition and physical exercise specialist. We'll excuse Dr. Maureen Hayes, who's taking a few weeks away from us, which is just fine. We have a guest tonight, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, who we've had her on a bunch of times, and every time we just can't quite squeeze enough out of her. It's like trying to wring a sponge or something. It just keeps flowing because she is such a consummate, knowledgeable professional when it comes to natural healing and understanding how the body works at so many different levels. We will start by making a disclaimer. We are representing a company called ASEA, or ASEA Global. This is a cellular health company, a nutrition company that is regulated both in the United States and other countries by supplement-based laws as per our FDA and every other country's FDA. Therefore, we do not make any claims about medical diseases. We don't diagnose, we're not treating, we're not suggesting curing. We're using this as a supplement to assist the body's natural healing capabilities. With that said, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, we are so thrilled that you're with us again tonight. We would like to have you maybe start off, if you would introduce yourself as you would wish to be known, and let us know also, for those who maybe don't know your story, like, what is your story? How did you find your way into this arena with not just natural healing, but with ASEA specifically? And maybe you can start there, and then we're gonna like pepper you with some questions, I'm certain.
Yeah.
Go on, unmute first.
There we go. Well, thanks very much, Lee. Always a pleasure to be back. Yeah, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. I'm a traditional naturopath, and so everything that Lee said about tonight, that we can't diagnose, treat, and cure because we're in the space of nutrition, is exactly what a traditional naturopath is about. We're really targeted and focused on, how does the human body function? Because it's this beautiful inbuilt system that is self-regulating and designed to promote health. As a naturopath, my focus is lifestyle. So what I know that Lee talks a lot about, the Redox lifestyle in particular, but that is what natural health is all about. How do we just support the body by doing the things that we can do in our life, living a clean, healthy life, providing it with all the things that it needs to sustain health and to prevent the problems that we really don't want to see as we get older. I came to this out of a personal need. I had a major car accident that terminated a career in dance, and I had no direction to go to. I had no solution from doctors who all said, well, you'll just have to live with the pain that you're in. They did suggest that they were going to operate on my spine. Fortunately, they decided that wasn't a healthy solution, but they didn't give me any other option other than just live with it, go sort it out for yourself and deal with it. That was a tough point in my life, most definitely. And it was thanks to someone else whose path we crossed probably about 5 to 7 years later, who happened to introduce me to some natural healing approaches. I was pretty skeptical, very much a traditional mindset as a dancer. Our life was orthopeds and physical therapists, and certainly wasn't into alternatives back then. No, but that journey was what brought me to the notion that, if I can heal, then I can help teach other people to do the same thing. And understanding that the body is designed to promote health. It's not designed to promote sickness, but we do get into that space because life and other challenges happen. My journey there was, educating everybody with everything that I learned, because I wanted to help empower other people to be owners of their own health. And that's the exciting piece. So for me, I was always looking at modalities and nutritional programs and just everything and anything that could support the body to find a way to heal. Crossed my path in 2011, someone shared a seer with me. Now, back then, I did not realize I'd already been dabbling in this space of redox, but nobody was really talking about that word back then. So I'd been doing stuff with nitric oxide testing with our patients in our clinic. I was already into enzymes, all the worker bees of our diet, and I turned it down, wasn't interested. But I guess I was fortunate that someone else crossed my path back in 2017 and caught me long enough with a topical application, the gel that we can use, which did some interesting things. As we know, when we use a topical application of Redox, it can really support the body in a way to make shifts that certainly seem pretty unbelievable when you first start to watch this happen, but made me realize that there was something worth investigating, if nothing else. And so I started to do my due diligence, and I worked with the product technology and just trying it on my clients and getting them to give me feedback, because I was evaluating more or less. But there were some significant things that happened within our life. My husband had struggled for 22 years to be able to exercise and not need assistive inhaler technologies or something to help him breathe. We tried everything in over 20 years of being in this industry. We had never found a solution that helped him to have a free and easy life where he could really participate and do the things that he wanted to do without struggling. And even though I was totally skeptical, I gave him the Redox technology, the liquid, not because I actually thought it was going to do anything, but anyone who knows my story knows that actually I was going to send the liquid back. I was comfortable with the gel, watching that change all sorts of amazing challenges with being, unable to walk easily or bend, anything that was uncomfortable or hurt. I could see it make changes pretty quickly for that. So I knew it had a value, but I was still in this kind of skeptical, don't know if I really need this. I've got lots and lots and lots of tools in my toolbox. I wasn't exactly looking for yet another supplement. But anyway, I gave it to him and said, look, you just drink it. I'm actually not going to order any more of the liquid. Don't really want that. No expectation. And within 2 weeks, this had such a dramatic shift in his capacity to be able to suddenly engage in things that he hadn't done for years and years and years without needing something to help him breathe, that I knew that there was something unusual. And I kind of said, I got to understand, why is this one thing making a change in the way that all these other things that we'd used had never done? And that was the start of my journey in that. And realizing then that it was unique. As I started to research, having been in the space of just really lots and lots of nutritional supplements, and I'm sure there are people on the call today who have embraced lots of traditional supplements and may find that they don't get the benefit that they're hoping for and wondering why. And as I started to look at the books and read the science, I thought, I wonder if this is the missing link, the thing that can pull everything together and to put the conversation in there that could be missing, even if we're giving nutrition. And I watched this play out time and time again. And so it's just been an amazing experience to be able to add this to people's lives and just watch transformations change that I've never been able to achieve with just one other product technology.
So if you don't mind, for all the guests, the people that are going to be watching this or watching live that don't know what we're talking about, can you please go over what, because again, I always kind of joke when I look at the bottle, it says it's a dietary supplement, made from salt water that tastes like pool water, made in Salt Lake City, and it's like sodium chloride. And I mean, it's just like, really? Can you help people understand that?
Yeah, if we'd actually chosen a script, you know, for the most ridiculous combination of things, we probably couldn't have done better if we tried, right? Yeah, I mean, so redox signaling molecules are, I like to think of them as the language of cellular health. So they're the inbuilt signaling mechanisms that if we weren't making them as we speak in every single cell, we'd be face planting in pretty quick succession, right? We wouldn't be having a conversation. So rather like a cell phone, right? Cell phone needs to have good signaling for us to be able to have a conversation. And when that falls apart, we either have miscommunication and poor outcome, or the worst case is, you know, we have a drops communication. We can't actually hear anything and the cell communication goes away. Our cells in the body are exactly the same. And deep within every cell, we have these little engines called mitochondria, without getting too technical. But they're like the battery pack of the human body. And they generate energy, which is why we're all alive, right? We have to have cellular energy going all the time. We think about the car engine. Until you turn on the engine and you get energy going, it's not going anywhere. That's the same in our cells. We have to be generating energy for us to function, to breathe, to do anything at all. And that is, it comes from this process that you may well remember back in high school, the Krebs cycle and ATP, right? We generate energy. But part of what this spurs is these two really critical things: positive charges and negative charges, reductants and oxidants, that science has combined together to be this field of redox biology. That's just to say that this is what signals communication in every single cell in the human body for anything to take place. And it's a way in which it communicates, it cascades all over the place, and it tells us how to stay healthy. But the great thing about these signals is they go and find the problems and they help the body support them. Now, you ask, why do we say on the label, right, salt and water? Well, we go back to, how does the body make, what does the body use to make redox signaling molecules? It uses the water of the human body, which is saline, right? What's saline made of? It's salt and water. And if you think about it, we know we're made of salt and water. I think we don't think about that necessarily when we see it on a label, right? We're also used to applying old world approaches to analysis, which is ingredients, to something that's new world. And even though we're in nutrition, it's because no one knows what to do with redox, right? We have this category that's never existed. They haven't got a place to really put us. So it's really interesting to note that in the USA, we're in nutrition. Yeah. In other countries, we could be in the water category. In other places, we're in the food category, which kind of suggests they don't know what to do. But what are we used to looking at with nutrition? We're used to looking at the ingredients label. So what's it made of, right? And then we look at water, sodium chloride, and we go, well, that's just a bunch of salt water, right? Why can't I go to the kitchen, take a glass of water, sling some salt in there, and bingo, I've got redox signaling molecules. And that's because the human body takes that saline, hydrogen chloride, sodium, and oxygen, and breaks it apart and creates these signaling molecules. So in the transformation of taking that same ingredients, this science is so brilliant. It's found out, how do we actually replicate that? Why is that significant? Because these are a bit like fireworks signals, right? Or a spark, you know, they're here and they're gone because they're signaling all the time. And science would say, well, you can't grasp something that's around for a nanosecond, right? And how do you hold on to that? How do you make anything out of that if it's supposed to just give information and then regenerate, and give information and regenerate? If we just see this cycle going on. Well, the brilliance is that scientists were able to establish not how do we make redox signaling molecules. This company, ASEA, didn't discover redox, right? We got to place that in the right space. Redox is before ASEA. Companies have been making it also, but what they hadn't ever been able to do was to stabilize these signals. So they would last about 10 minutes. You don't have anything that's commercially usable if you have to sit over the little machine that generates them and drink them on the spot. And the brilliance of this is that a group of scientists were able to take 10 years of patented research and find the magic in how do you extend the lifespan from 10 minutes to what was originally 12 months back in, 2007. And our science has progressed so much now that what we have is a lifespan of 21 months. That's a game changer, because now you've got something that's native to the human body, and we'll probably talk about why that's significant, and being able to not supplement, because this is already within us. Supplementation is putting things in that isn't already there. We're making these signals all the time. So I always think of this as bio-replenishing, right? We're replenishing something that is already native to the human body. Yeah. So these are really life-giving essential molecules. Nothing's going to happen without them.
Yeah, Lee, if you don't mind explaining, because again, on these calls, we have a lot of people that share their testimonials like Carolyn did and like we have and you have, Lee. But why do we have to talk in language that we can't say diseases and we can't say drugs and things of that nature? Why is that? Because a lot of people really wonder, well, why can't you just come out and say it, guys? Can you answer that, please?
Well, in a word, it's because this is ruled by supplement law. FDA law doesn't allow that to happen because of its supplement status. And we have not done, or should we do the research that would be specific to diseases and, treatments and so forth, then we would probably be shut down. We wouldn't have the opportunity to market this. It's really that simple. So it's kind of it's the silver lining in the cloud, even though we'd love to be able to satisfy, people's curiosity and scratch that itch, as it were, about, well, where's this proof? Where's your random controlled trials? Like they look at it as a drug trial. Well, if we were to do that, we would be regulated by different rules and laws, and we would furthermore only be able to talk about one thing. Everything else would be off-label, and it would just shut us down. And so we've chosen not to do that and to just get ahead. I can tell everybody that there is robust levels of science that's being started specific to these products that we're talking about that will come. And in the words of our founder, Burgess Norton, we're going to let the science catch up with what we kind of are already experiencing. On that, I'd like to ask Carolyn a question, or ask her comment to this statement. I've been doing some further research, and I came across this phraseology that said, and this might help define the difference just a little bit, because people say, well, this kind of segues with, I used it and I didn't feel anything. But the statement is pharmaceuticals, drugs, command or tell the body what to do, and herbal medicines and natural healing substances invite the body to do something. Could you maybe just take that thought? Well, I don't know what that sparks, in your mind, but maybe you could mash that together and just dig a little deeper with that idea.
Yeah, and just before I go there, just to say that in my experience, certainly being in this field of natural health and looking at things that come out on the market, not through the drug route first, in my experience, is about 20 years before medicine catches up with what we see out on the market. So it's always that kind of period of time. And I think, that's kind of, we're halfway through that, I think, with Redox. They're catching up to where we are. Yeah. But to your point, it's the principle of naturopathy, right? Is the belief that the body has this innate system within it that enables it to heal. And so when you're using a drug, to your point, Lee, drugs, we know the predictability of them because the ingredients are allopathic, right, against nature. They push the body to a space that is predictable. So if that's insulin, right, if we've got too much blood sugar, we're going to push the blood sugar down and hold it to where they want to. If it's blood pressure, we're going to push the blood pressure down and hold it to where we want to. The challenge with drugs is that the body is innately designed to find balance, right? And if you push for too long, it's like shoving at somebody. If you push at someone, what do they want to do? They want to push back. So what do we see in medicine is that we can suppress those symptoms, which are really like the fire alarm going off, but we haven't put the fire out. We've suppressed the fire alarm. We've turned that fire alarm off, but the fire's still there. And eventually it begins to overwhelm the body. If you've noticed, if you're on drugs, will push back after a while, right? And what happens? They up the level of the medication, or they add another medication, right? Or they change the medication to something that's stronger because they want to force that body back into that space again. When we work outside of that drug route, and it's not just about ASEA, right? As you said, Lee, when we're using herbal medicines, when we're using vitamins, when we're using food, right? When we're using good, clean water to detoxify, when we're using sleep, when we're using exercise, all of the things that contribute to health, right? We are coming in like a net, right? We're coming underneath and supporting the body. And the goal is to find what is it that the body needs to be able to give it the resources to get back into that full healing mode again, because the body is what is healing. We're not healing even with this, right? We're supporting the body to do what it's capable of doing. But when we get stressed with life, right, when we eat the wrong foods, when we don't sleep enough, when we don't drink the right kind of water, when we eat under stress, all of those things, when we are polluted and breathing in toxins and pesticides and chemicals, etc., we're challenging the body. And I know you talk a lot about this stress resilience in a cell, Lee. All right, we challenge the body. Health is only about the ability to be able to rebound against all those things and bring ourselves back to homeostasis. So the cool piece is we're never harming the body when we're working with something that's natural. We're supporting it to do what it needs to do.
So the other thought I have for you, maybe you can just bounce this into that, is all diseases, which is what we go see, traditional healthcare professionals about. I love your analogy of the fire alarm, like when it sounds and we say, ouch, or, we have a problem. I'm not talking about acute situations like trauma or, even an acute manifestation from a chronic, degenerative disease. Like if a person had a heart attack, well, they just didn't get heart disease last night at 11 p.m. and have a heart attack at 3 a.m. So, but the idea is that all disease starts with sick cells. So back to this idea of, we're doing something that is the net that is assisting the cell to function better. So, but I'm still looking at it with a mindset that we've been trained to, look at this at in our society of, gee, I don't feel anything, so it must not be working. How do you respond to that?
Right. And the thing is, so I have a lovely visual that I often give people of an iceberg. Right? There's some of it is above the surface. The majority of it is below the surface. And if we think about the fact that we are 70 to 100 trillion cells, we always talk about that all of those cells commune in different ways, right? Some of those cells are cardiac cells, some of them are lung cells, some of them are digestive cells, but wherever they are in that community, we agree that if every cell is healthy, then we and those organ systems are going to be healthy. So when we have a breakdown, we know that, as you said, it's damaged cells going on. You're right. We don't know when those damaged cells start to go wrong. And in fact, science often talks about the fact it's about 8 years that we start to get this malfunction before we get something that bounces above the surface, right? It pushes its way on up and it has a name attached to it now. Well, as you said, that didn't just happen yesterday. God forbid, when people get pancreatic cancer diagnosis, right? They're often given a month to live. That didn't come a month ago when they felt, maybe okay and didn't need to go to the doctor. So I think the challenge is that none of us have the capacity to look below the surface and say, you've got X number of damaged cells here and X number of damaged cells here, and you're going to need 1 month to see and feel a difference. You've got a bigger renovation problem going on, and your job's going to take 3 months before you see a difference, right? Or sometimes 6 months. For me, it was So I'm thinking I had a car accident. In that process, I injured my colon because of where the seatbelt was.
Yikes.
I had struggled for 10 years with a traumatic brain injury that disconnected the conversation with my gut. My gut didn't know what its job was any longer. I'm a digestive health specialist, and I thought I could solve that. But in 10 years of struggling, I wasn't getting on top of it. 3 months into using this, I got some strange things that started to happen spontaneously, right? Between 3 months and 9 months, my body marched its way back through its renovation project. And 9 months later, I no longer had that issue. If I had said, this has to do something in 1 month before I believe it's working, right? I'd have given up on that and I'd still be struggling with where I was. So there's, I often, when people say, how long is it going to take before I can feel? Well, how long is a piece of string, right? None of us know how empty your tank is. And really, this is what it's about, is we have to rebuild. So I think of this as, I love the analogy. It's like renovating a home, right? How long have you left your home alone and not done the work to maintain it? What are you doing to maybe undermine the health of your home that you live in, right? What are you doing to promote the health of the home that you live in? What are the genetics that you're given as process? And so everybody's journey will be different, but we do know, to come to your point, Lee, we have studies that we show when we take this, it's actually working immediately. 100% of us are having blood serum marker changes. Can we feel that? No, we don't feel that happening. No more than do we feel damaged cells happening. Let's go the other side of that, right? Right? Do you feel the first day that cholesterol's building up? Do you feel the first year that it's got worse, the second year that it's got worse? You only know when your doctor looks at something on the blood test and the damage has already happened, and then they say, oh, you need a drug. But you don't feel, for the most part. We feel pain when we injure ourselves, right? That acute stuff is obvious, but chronic stuff takes longer. So it's working, whether we know it or not. We just have to have the conviction to give the body the time to make the healing, because that's what's happening.
Beautiful answer. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. And when you started seeing your change, you had the signaling taking place. So then your body was able to do the repair. And people who are doing the wrong things are sabotaging their redox potential. And then they wonder why certain things are taking long, or why did I get this back, or whatever. So they don't quite understand, like Lee's book, the redox lifestyle, and how everything works, and that the redox makes all these other good things for your health work. And you brought up, this person that had the bad, a person that has a bad, like rogue cells, the big C, like you said, that thing was brewing for a while, and their blood sugar levels were probably not right for a long time. And then lo and behold, something just appears. Well, that is building up to that bad thing. But I was thinking, I was saving this question when you brought up Paul and seeing his change, and you just said, drink the liquid. Well, now he's getting this communication, and then he started seeing it work. And don't you think, and Lee, you can add to it, when our gene study came out in September 2017, and those important pathways and the inflammation marker, don't you think that that's what changed for Paul and getting better lung capacity? Is now the molecules are going after these pathways, and his inflammation, which is where many things show up from. So maybe I can talk about the gene study. To me, that's such a valid study that Dr. Ward did. And I can share that now with people we didn't have before 17. Why this science works, why they need to go read Lee's book, go to Redox Science, the new website, and learn, about the gene study. So maybe the two of you can talk about, if not NFR2, talk about any one of those and just show how important this is to the whole body.
Lee, I'll let
So
you talk about the NFR2 because I know that's, really something you're very strong on. I would just say that with the gene study, when it came out, I actually got to sit at a dinner with the lead scientist on that. And we talked about the results, whether he was there to discuss. And what fascinated me was he said that, in fact, every gene had this improved upregulation. They could only talk about 5 because genes as a whole are not fully mapped or fully understood at this point in science. So they chose to talk about the 5, which is the inflammatory signaling, the immune signaling, cardiovascular health with vein elasticity, digestive enzyme production, as well as hormones and vitality. So they wanted to talk about what is well known and could be well proven rather than the space of a lot which they didn't yet know about. 2 things I would take from that, right? 100% of the people consuming the 8 ounces of the Redox liquid had this 20 to 31% genetic improvement, 100%. So I love, in my practice of taking the science and doing the application, to be able to put people on that for at least 2 months, because none of us are any different than the people on that study. We're all in the same. If it's going to be 100% for them, it's 100% for us. We can upregulate that. But the other side of it is also 0% on placebo, which brings us back to the saline, right? Because they use the pure saline that is used in the processing before it becomes redox. And that was a 0% response on placebo. I after that study, I went around and canvassed a bunch of people who are in the research fields and said, tell me, when you do drug trial testing, double-blind placebo testing, how many times do you see 100% response to whatever you're testing and a 0 on placebo?
Yeah.
And uniformly, it was none. None. So powerful, right?
That's right.
Okay,
That's
and
right.
I've been wanting to Lee, real quick. I've been wanting to ask this question since you talked to the guys that did it. How many after the 8 weeks said, I felt it, versus the blood work showing it?
Yeah, as far as I know, nobody said I felt anything. And to the other side of it, right, they did the testing in the Affymetrix array of the blood work before the start. These were healthy 35-year-olds. And yet their genetic expression was already down regulating, which is that tipping point, really. I know in metabolism, we talk in health that, your metabolism, there's nothing you can do post 35 that ever will combat sufficiently the loss that you have after 35. Your metabolism just goes down at that rate. And so that speaks to where we're at, I think, with how we can change things with the redox, because look at Rosie, right? Those beautiful studies at 84, how you can turn someone around and they look at least 10 to 12 years younger in their 90s. That's why I still say this is the most significant product technology I've ever had. I haven't got a single thing that can do that. But back to the study, yeah, the 35-year-olds didn't realize they had downregulated genetic function, and I don't believe that they actually felt anything. What about your thoughts on that, Lee?
Well, the title of the first book I wrote is Redox Matters: Connecting the Dots Between Redox Biology and Health. And it's this connection. There's tens and tens of thousands of articles out there that speak to this cell biology that we call redox biochemistry. And there's thousands of them, that each take a small segment of it and explore it. And then when you bring it all together and understand the bigger picture, it starts to make sense. So when you run across these stories, that we're hearing about and that we see, each one of them on their own standing is a kind of an individual observational study or case study of one. It's for the person, but collectively and brought together, they do help explain and tell the story, because it's really hard, to peel away all the other reasons. I think a good way for someone just coming at this for the first time and understanding what is it that we're talking about. Those who are coming to convention next month, if you've been fortunate enough to be one of the 500 that has got your ticket, your lucky ticket to be at the medical professional the MPB, the Medical Professionals Board meeting, where we're going to get into some of the science. We'll hear us get into some of the detail of that, but I'll just give the high altitude look at this. It's really about the system that we've been talking about, the body's natural abilities, at the cellular level to function and heal. Well, what that looks like, and the reason why it is so broad in its application, is because the detection or sensing mechanism in the body that discovers or learns or senses or detects when there's a problem is what we call a redox sensitive switch. Redox sensitive meaning that it has to do with oxidation levels. When there's a problem in the cell, even before symptoms show up, when there's a problem in the cell, the state or level or degree or amount of oxidation that exists starts to rise. And as it rises, it can go two ways in a broad sense. We are either going to produce an inflammatory response to that, or we're going to produce what we'll call a defensive response to that, a healing response to that. And the amounts or degrees or the persistence of those insults or that stressful state of oxidation will dictate which way it goes. And, I liked it, Carolyn, when you kind of talked about, your house's weathering. You could throw your car as you use it, it suffers wear and tear. You may not, next week when you ride your car, it will be imperceptible that it's worse than it was 2 months ago. It just kind of like falls apart one day, over a weekend, and it's in the shop with some major work being done. But truth be told, it was going downhill all along. Well, the detection of that is this whole system that we're talking about. And in a broad, high level way, high altitude way, we could just say this is the way that everything, how everything works in the body. It's a landscape. We call it the redoxome, just like there's a genome that governs everything. This is a redoxome, or in science speak, we call it an epigenome. It's the overlay on the genetic structure. And it's in that arena where this communication or signaling is occurring, and it only signals with the movement of electrons. And so you'll hear us talk about redox, reduction, oxidation. That's just simply the movement of these silly electrons, around and about in our body. But there's some sophisticated mechanisms that sense, detect, and respond to that whole thing. And this is an important thing. It's responsive. Drugs are not responsive. They're top-loaded. They force an action. Even herbs do the same thing to a large extent. But this is responsive and adaptive, and that's what creates the resilience inside the body, that the next time I come across the thing or the state that's creating this imbalance or this problem, I will be stronger. I can resist it better. I won't be taken down by it as much. And that's that natural healing or rejuvenation or anti-aging. We talked about earlier, where's this redox science going? We're maybe 10 or 20 years away from seeing it hit big time. Like the rising tide is going to raise all boats. And believe you me, the pharmaceutical industry is very intently looking at ways that they can take this redox science and create drugs that will have very specific, high specificity for deep signals, switches, redox switches in deeply hidden pathways that they can charge great amounts of money for, and they'll do wonderful things, when they finally come around. But anyway, I thought I'd throw that into some context, why is it that the body gets better, stronger, has better defenses, more resilient, and stress adaptation and responsiveness, and that all this meshes together and answers that. I'd like to maybe pivot just a little bit, because you made a comment earlier that your career changed, one time, and I think I've heard you talk about how you are blending this in with your current career, and it's offering you new options. You can make different choices now because you're a part of this. Could you explain that and what you mean by that?
Yeah, it has changed in a way that's so much more powerful. One of the frustrations I think that a lot of people can maybe appreciate is when you're dealing with just supplements, and as you were talking about, whether they're whole food supplements, whether they're botanicals, whether they're herbs, all of those things, we've still got to digest them. And a lot of people think that we are what we eat, but actually we are what we digest and assimilate. So that's a whole different discussion, right? We don't want to eat the wrong things, and so we can be eating a beautiful diet, but the challenge is our digestion changes in the same way that the human body alters in its level and production of redox with time. Those two things, this is this downhill slope of aging, as I always call it. We begin to lose the same capacity that we had when we were younger. So one of the things that we would find we do functional medicine. I was in partnership with a DO who was also in charge of a lot of different prison systems as well. So he had a different kind of role, both in the traditional stuff, and then we would do functional medicine in private. But we would often be frustrated because we weren't working in this redox space. And so I think in many ways that so many people come to nutrition and alternatives because they're using drugs, they want to get off the drug, they want to find an alternative. And so we can swap out sometimes, right? We could swap out chromium for when people have got blood sugar issues and maybe they want to get off of some of their medications. So there are certain things that help, very specific things, but then what we would still find is we'd be frustrated with the chronic cases. How many times do we all, or have we all been in places where we take lots of different supplements, but we don't get to the outcome that we want, right? We're taking pill after pill, sometimes 10, 15, 20 a day, and we don't ever see the real evidence of optimal health that we're hoping for. This piece shifted because it gave me the what if, right? The missing link piece, because when we have to have both sides of the coin. So the materials come from the nutrition and the food that we eat, but we know the food doesn't have what we need, so we have to do supplementation, even just at a basic level. But the redox is the energy and the labor for those two things to come together to produce what we need in the cells and create healthy cells. So when I came across this, it shifted for me how I worked. First off, I thought, well, this is kind of cool because if it does what I think, this is where my if was in the beginning, I think I'm on to finally finding something that could kind of lock into place, right? The missing link piece, and push people to a space that they weren't achieving, that they were stalled down in. So I was excited with just the human potential of what I could do to help people feel a better level of health. As I started to play with this and watch the outcome, one of the things that I saw was we could transition away from so many physical supplements, pills and potions. Why? Because we've now got the energy to use the things we are consuming. So we have better outcome, and we need fewer things than probably people were giving themselves. Many of my clients would be taking 5, 10, 12 supplements, and we could dial down to maybe 2 or 3 for a change, foundational things. So that was a big leap because I could get better outcome for people, spend less, have much better optimal health. But as a clinician, we may be experienced in all of this thing, but we're still trading time for money, right? The people that we see, we spend the time with them, we get paid accordingly. But there's, in our field in particular, because we're not seeing people every 15 minutes like you are in traditional medicine, right? We would spend an hour or 2 hours with somebody. So there's a limit to how many people you can help in a week or a month. And I did a lot of work because of scanning systems with people over the time who were overseas. I could find the challenges, I could help them say, well, this is what we need to do, but then I couldn't get them products because they didn't exist overseas and I couldn't ship my stuff. There's all those things. So when I came across this with the notion that I could actually have something that now was in, at that time, like 31, 32 countries, this was a real game changer for me, because what it excited me to do first off was, wow, I actually now have a tool that I could offer somebody who's not in my office. So that's exciting. I've got something that, instead of just being able to say, well, here's your problems, but now here's how you can solve it, because that can be delivered to you. And I didn't have to do it because the company sends it everywhere. I don't get involved in this, which was really nice. That was my first bigger circle of potential that I'd not been able to achieve before. It's like suddenly I could have a doubling of my practice, because I don't have to literally be seeing somebody face to face to be able to access something that was beneficial. But then it became, wow, the power of being able to help connect people to people to people with this technology, and how other people, when they saw benefits, would come back to me and say, well, my Uncle Johnny would like some of this. How do we get it to him? Right. And then that person would see an experience, and they'd bless the lives of somebody else by saying, wow, you know, I've been using something that's been really beneficial to me. It might be something you should take a look at. Maybe it could help you. And it would go on from there. And so this did far more for my ability as a practitioner to help far more people than I could ever do in my practice in Charlottesville, Virginia. Right? Because I've only got so much time and I can only see so many people. So I loved the aspect of that I could now just gradually broaden the circle of my influence and help so many more people in that way achieve things that, to be honest, there isn't another product technology I've had that has enabled me to see some of the outcomes, which I know that you know from being, you know, sharing this and working with so many people, that I see stuff with this that it's like, even now, even though I kind of know the power of what we've got, it's like, my goodness me, you know, really miracles. But what we're watching is the miracle of the body do things that it just can't do with other things, because other things don't have what this is.
That's right.
What we're saying, me not being the medical one, it honestly sounds like snake oil. It just sounds crazy. And if this is as massive as we say, why doesn't everybody out there know about it? I don't know, Lee, if you want to address that. I mean, I know we know the answer, but so many people question that. Well, if this is so wonderful, why doesn't the whole world know about it? Either Lee or Carolyn.
Well, it's because it's new, number one, and it takes a couple of decades for new technology to make it to the front lines. I did a study one time, and it was like from the moment a researcher has a new thought, it takes about 17 or 18 years for it to finally wind up in clinical use. Now, that might be different now with the advent of what we call Moore's Law, you know, how the rate of information accelerates with what we have, especially now with AI coming in. But still, it's there, and it's not being introduced to conventional or traditional medical meetings. You know, it's not being written up in medical journals because there's no financial interest in it, to be frank.
Wow.
You know, the pharmaceutical interest is I think still 10 years out before they can make definitive statements with these Redox drugs that I mentioned earlier. When that happens, you know, the whole idea of Redox will be big, and it will be, when it happens, it will largely be as it is now starting to be in the area of anti-aging, you know, things that slow down the processes that promote aging and the metabolic clocks and so forth that are in our cells. But that's really the simple answer.
Yeah. Carolyn, did you have an issue with the distribution method that Virtus Norton chose?
I personally know. I'm familiar with this. I think that very often these type of companies are much more proactive in bringing things to the market that eventually become more mainstream, and that kind of goes to that 20-year process. Your point is, at the moment there is no redox-based drug. That's why most people don't know about this. But we have to think about it, right? Right. If you took something that right? Traditionally, what are we trained to do? As we talked about, we look at, well, what's it made of? What are the ingredients? Well, so you put that on the shelf. Somebody who knows nothing about how the science did something groundbreaking to stabilize something in a bioactive form outside of the human body so that we can ingest this and activate, we're the spark because we're organic, and put this on the shelf. And what do you do? What do I do? Right? What do we all do when we first learn about redox, right? We're investigating, well, what's it made of? Well, salt and water. Well, I can do that at home, right? Goes back on the shelf. So he's so smart because of his background in craft foods and being a strategist in the typical industry of normal foods. He knew that you can't put that on a shelf and see it whip out go out the doors very quickly. People are not going to pay for something that they don't understand and they think is just salt water. So it requires education when you've got something brand new. And I know David Silverman always talks about the light bulb, right? Right. When you have something that is new, someone has to tell something to someone else about something that is new because it's not known. And just because we don't know about it doesn't mean it's not valid, because we don't know about everything that's going on in the world. Even now, there are things being produced that you and I don't know about, right? But doesn't mean they're not valid. But it requires a story and education. And so he knew that the power of this lie in the fact that if we think about the story of ASEA, right, why did it not go pharmaceutical? And it was going to be sold to a pharmaceutical group. Right? But it's the ethos of what we're about, the human trial of putting it on people and actually seeing the outcome and then making a moral decision about, do you sell this for a colossal amount of money and it goes mainstream and it comes off the shelves and nobody can use it? Or do you continue to support people that are seeing their lives turn around when they weren't given any other possibility of hope? So it requires a story, it requires education, it requires people to be able to say, look what it did for me, you may want to try this.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me jump in and say this, because, I'm thinking of so many people that look at all of us and they go, well, I'm not going to trust this till I see, a dozen random controlled trials, or, I just need to see that data. And, number one, it's safe, it's transparent to medication. These are native molecules. We use these very same molecules inside our body to promote this responsive adaptation. And I just kind of look at people and I go, or think at least, I try not to get in their face, although I'm kind of excited when I talk to them. But it's like, well, I'm sorry that's your take on this, because in 5 or 10 years that we might be able to scratch your itch by then. I don't know. In the meantime, you're going to miss out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, there's so much that you can't reclaim those 5 or 10 years of aging. You could have slowed them down, by changing your lifestyle and incorporating this into your daily routine as an adjunctive help in upregulating the defensive pathways that keep you resilient in the face of ongoing physiological stress or disease. And so anyway, maybe that's a less charitable way to think towards other people, but so you're just going to miss out. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I tell you, one thing I think of is the fact that, all right, we've got all the science. You can go to the NIH, there's all the studies going on what redox does for health and its implication and when it doesn't work, for disease, and et cetera, et cetera. And they're trying to go to the drug route. Eventually they will. But I look at it this way. We have the scientifically proven, validated, stabilized signaling molecules that are third-party validated by independent laboratories, made in an FDA-registered facility. So we have the validation that we're made at the same level as drug production, right? We know what's in there is actually in there. You're not buying salt and water because it's validated third-party. I look at it this way. We have the science of redox, which the scientific community is showing us. And now we have the application of bioreplenishment for 13 years. We have a 13-year drug trial going on, right? Hundreds of thousands of people all over the world using this product safely. We've never had a bad incident at all because, as you said, It is totally non-toxic from trials. We know this, right? Scientific studies, non-toxic, can't be allergic to it, doesn't interfere with medication. It's the only thing I've got that doesn't interfere with medication. You can't say that about supplements that are pills or herbs, any of those kinds of things. They can all have interactions. So to me, I say, you know, go have a look at 13 years of application in the field of what it does, and then you judge it. And the only reason I say that is because there's a very well-known endocrinologist was talking about the fact that as a doctor, they listen to what the drug reps tell them about new drugs. And her words were, however, our belief around those drugs and whether we like them or not is played out one by one, looking at what the application is and how our clients respond to them. We don't just base it on what the drug companies tell us.
Yep.
This is no different to me. You can tell me all you want. I've worked with other NRF2 products that have lots of science studies, but we never saw the outcome in practice in our clinic. This is there, you know, it's phenomenal.
Exactly. I had a quick point for the nutrition. I see it in the background there. You were talking about assimilating. And when we're on our line, the VIA line, and there are videos y'all can watch. You can follow Carolyn. She's got all sorts of great stuff about enzymes and digestive and, you know, the biome and the Life Max. But, you know, ours is 100% absorption. So when you're taking our VIA line, you're getting all the nutrients. And then you compare it with, you know, redox signaling, and then the redox is going to make these nutritionals work better. So I know we don't have a lot of time left. I also noticed you've got the new mask, and your background is skincare. We didn't get to really talk about that. So what is your excitement with that? Because we're the only clay mask that has, you know, you got clay mask, and then you have the Renew 28. So here we have redox signaling molecules in our mask. So what have been your excitement with it since it came out?
I love this. I mean,
couple minutes.
We've got amazing experiences. You really should finish by showing Rosie, because we've got a number of people keep asking about the Rosie. But these two are both pure redox. But the delivery mechanism of bentonite, having owned a spa, we used to use bentonite, but it is great for tightening, but it's also very drying. And the gorgeous piece of this is that doesn't happen with what we've got. Right. So it brightens the skin, extracts all the junk that's out there with those negative charges, pulling all of the impurities out, closes up the pores, tightens up the skin, and keeps it so supple and soft. And I don't know if it's, I don't think it's this. I mean, I'm going to, you know, I have a quick story. I was at lunch 2 days ago with someone who said to me she told her girls, who I've known for many years, that she was coming to lunch with me, taking me out to lunch because she'd missed my 70th birthday party. And the girls went, no way. Now, my friend is 62, and the girls said, she's only in her 50s. And we cracked up over that, right? But this is just truly because we're anti-aging from the inside and supporting from the outside. I mean, it's just incredible how we can literally reverse age, I think.
That's right. I agree.
And
show that
ahead
picture.
And show the pictures real quick.
We have her. So young looking.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show her son first. And so this is Pastor Mark Mullaney, who was in a bad traffic accident. And he, through an act of God, heard about these molecules. That picture in the middle is all the facial scars. And I have met Mark. He's an amazing man of God in Albuquerque, First Christ Church. And so you see his after pictures, and he's got just go to his website, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And then he shared it with his mother. And this is Rosie, the famous Rose, the face of ASEA, as far as I'm concerned. Now, his mother did pass away a number of months ago, but you can just see the smile on this woman's face. Yeah. She did have a serious health challenge the last 10 years. By the way, she's 84 years old. And at the 7-week mark, Mark told me this, she said it didn't work. She goes, son, give me my money back. It didn't work. And like I jokingly say, could you just imagine, here's the before picture, and then here comes the after picture, and what would your response be? She's 92 years old in the bottom right. It's an absolute absolute divine gift.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And, you know, in wrapping up, first off, we have Russell Mariani next Friday. Then we have Donalyn Dominguez is going to be with us the week after. We've got some great things lined up. But so many people out there are skeptics because they've tried it all before. They think they've heard it all before. Oh, I've seen it all. Like you said, Carolyn, there's a lot of things out there that people just do not know anything about. And because of this being non-toxic and all the testimonials, and a 14-year-old company, 14 years old in 33 countries, you can't patent saltwater. And every time you go into a new country, you have to be able to validate what you have. And if it were just saline, who in their right mind would allow that into any other country? What if this is real? Get back to the person that invited you on this call. Do not, please, do not go to Amazon. They are not authorized sellers of ASEA Redox. We go from Salt Lake City directly to the consumer. We will never market products through Amazon, through eBay, or through Walmart.com. It will never be available in a store. 2, do not go to Google to do your research. You can go to Google Scholar, but you don't go to Google. There are, believe it or not, there's actually people out there that maybe don't want this product on the market, and they will throw out all kinds of lies to try to deceive you. What's it gonna hurt? What could it potentially do for you? So guys, we want to thank you. Lee, you want to wrap up anything, or Carolyn? Carolyn?
Oh, total gratitude for the fact that I found this, and to Dorothy for who made me pay attention, because life is so different in so many ways for everybody.
Yeah.
That's right.
Lee?
Looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I echo that as well. And those who still have the opportunity to register to come to the convention next month, please do, or watch it virtually. I'm wearing a special shirt right now. This face is the face of a man who just had his second great grandchild born this week. And so,
awesome.
I'm really glad that there's anti-aging stuff happening.
Amen.
That's
Amen.
right. You want to live as long as you can for those little ones.
And that Friday of convention, we will be setting up a table at the convention. Find us. We'll be there somewhere that Friday evening. And we will be doing compliant testimonials that night. So please look for us. Guys, thank you. God bless. This recording will be available at Redox Matters in about an hour and a half or so. Any questions, please get back to the one that brought you on the call and just get on the stuff. Thank you, guys.
Thanks
again,
everyone.
Carolyn. We love you.
Appreciate
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks.
Appreciate everything, guys.
It's good.
Bye-bye.
Great as always.
Yes.
See you soon.